Hi, this is Mr. Bledsoe, and in this video I'm going to show you one method to do long division. And we're going to use this division problem for our example, 741 divided by 3. So if we wanted to, we could just use the method of repeated subtraction to do this division problem, which is to say we could just start subtracting 3's from 741 until we had subtracted out all of the 3's and we got down to 0. So 741 minus 3 is 738. That's after subtracting 1 3. 738 minus 3 is 735. That's after subtracting 2 3's. And I could just keep subtracting 3's until I get down to 0. And if I keep track of how many times I subtracted 3, then I would just count all those up, and that would be my answer to 741 divided by 3. Well, of course, this will take a while, and we'd like to have a method, an algorithm, that's a little bit faster, and also that will work for any dividend and any divisor. The dividend, that's this number here that we are dividing, 741 in this case, and the divisor, that's the number that we are dividing by, which in this case is 3. So here's how we're going to write our division problem for this long division algorithm. So here is what the long division symbol looks like, and underneath it we're going to write our dividend 741, and outside of our symbol we're going to write our divisor 3. And rather than subtracting individual 3's from the dividend like we did with repeated subtraction, what we want to do is we want to subtract 3's in bunches. And since our dividend is a hundreds number, that is, the largest place value digit is in the hundreds place, we're going to start by subtracting in bunches of 3 hundreds. All right? 3 because our divisor is 3, and hundreds because our dividend is a hundreds number. So for step 1, we ask ourselves this question: how many multiples of 300, how many bunches of 300 can I subtract from 741? So how many multiples of 300 can I subtract from 741? Well, I could just subtract one bunch of 300 from 741, but I want to subtract as many bunches of 300 as I can so that I can get 741 down to 0 as quickly as I can. So I ask myself if I can subtract any more 300s from 741, and I see that I can. I can subtract 2 bunches of 300s from 741, which would be 600. And I notice I can't subtract any more bunches of 300s. I can't subtract 3 bunches of 300s from 741 because 3 bunches of 300s would be 900, and I only have 741 to subtract from. Okay, so 2 bunches of 300, that's my answer to my first question. How many multiples of 300 can I subtract from 741? My answer is 2. So 2 bunches of 300 is 600, and we write the 600 down right here because we're going to subtract that 600 from 741. But before we do our subtraction, we want to make sure that we keep track of how many 3's we're about to subtract from 741. So to do that, we ask our second question, which is, how many 3's am I about to subtract from 741? Well, the answer to that question is 200. I'm about to subtract 200 3's from 741. So we write that up here on top of our long division symbol. 200 is how many 3's I'm about to subtract from 741. And notice up here above on the top of the long division symbol, this is where we're keeping track of how many 3's we're subtracting for each step. Notice also that we're writing the 2 in our hundreds column directly over the 7. It's important to keep all of your digits lined up in their proper columns when you're doing long division problems. Now, also notice that these 2 questions that we're asking here in step 1, they're really just 2 different ways of talking about this number 600 right here. I can say that 600 is 2 bunches of 300, or I can say that 600 is 200 bunches of 3. We use the first question to come up with the 600 number, and then we use the second question to come up with the 200 number, the number of 3s. All right? Okay, so now we have 200 3s, which is 600, and we're going to subtract that from 741. So, do my subtraction here. And that leaves us with 141. So already we are a lot closer to 0 after just our first step. Okay, now let's go on to step number 2. And in step number 2, we're going to ask ourselves the same 2 questions we asked in step 1, except now we're going to move on to our tens column. So our question now is, how many multiples of 30, 3 times 10, how many multiples of 30 can I subtract from 141? 141 is how much I have left after having subtracted my 600. So we started out by subtracting hundreds of 3s, and now we're going to subtract tens of 3s, which is going to be multiples of 30. So again, I could subtract just one multiple of 30, just one bunch of 30. I could also subtract 60. Remember, I want to subtract as many as I can. And notice here, I'm just going to be skip counting by 30s, right? I'm just naming the multiples of 30. So I could subtract 30, 60, 90, 120, 150. Wait, 150 is too big. I only have 141 to subtract from. So 120 is the multiple of 30 that I'm looking for. So how many multiples of 30 is that? How many multiples of 30 can I subtract from 141? Well, let's see. 30, 60, 90, 120. That's 4. That's 4 multiples of 30. And again, I want to keep track of the number of 3s. All right, so now that I have my number 120, I'm ready for my second question. How many 3s am I about to subtract from 141? How many 3s am I about to subtract from 141? Well, how many 3s is 120? That's 40 3s, because 40 times 3 is 120. So I write my 40 up here. Notice again, I'm lining up my tens, the 4 in the 40. I'm lining that up with my tens column in my 200 and my tens column for my 741. And now I'm ready to subtract my 120 from 141, and that gets me down to 21. Now we go to our final step, step number 3, where again we're going to do the same thing we did in the first 2 steps, and since now we're down to our ones column, we ask how many multiples of 3 can I subtract from 21? And I can skip count pretty quickly to get my answer to 21. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. That's 7 multiples of 3. So I'm going to be subtracting 21. And again, how many 3s am I about to subtract from 21? Well, in this case, the answer is actually the same because I'm in my ones column, so the answer is going to be the same. I'm going to subtract 7 3s. I don't want that there. I'm going to subtract 7 3s because 7 times 3 is 21. And now 21 minus 21, now I'm down to 0. And so I've subtracted all of the 3s out of 741 that I can. Now that I'm down to 0, I'm finished. And what's the total number of 3s that I've subtracted from 741? Well, it's right here. Here's all the numbers of 3s that I subtracted. I just need to add them up. 200 plus 40 plus 7 is 247. So 741 divided by 3 equals 247. Now, if I want to check my work to confirm that I haven't made any mistakes, I can easily do that because I know that if 741 divided by 3 equals 247, well, then 247 times 3 must be equal to 741. Well, I can do that multiplication, and I can find out if, in fact, I've made any mistakes. Oops, there we go. So let's try it. 247 times 3. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 40 is 120. And 3 times 200 is 600. And I add those up, and I get 741, which is what I started with.